So we just began for the 40th year to study the Rambam. Some people study 3 chapters a day and they finish it in the course of a year. And some people study a chapter a day and finish it in the course of 3 years. And this is the 40th year that this is going on. And of course, the Rabbi initiated this project, and it was very important to him. He mentioned it often, and he himself followed that schedule. So we're starting from the beginning. The way the Rambam begins, I mean, it's just highly unusual that someone could have this bird's eye view of the entire Torah. To be able to write the 14 volumes that he did write, with every mitzvah, every detail, whether it was a matter of agriculture, mitzvahs related to agriculture, or mitzvahs related to astronomy. He has them all spelled out, organized, codified, just incredible. It's like you often wonder, people who didn't have satellite pictures or even aerial pictures, how did they write maps? How could they have an accurate perception of the area when all they could see is one piece at a time? It's amazing. And of course, their maps were not so perfectly accurate. But the Rambam seems to have mapped out the entire Torah as if he had a satellite picture, or certainly an aerial picture. As if he had a drone with a camera on it. Really amazing. So he lays it all out so precisely, like computerized. So the first thing he does is he gives you the name of the leader, the Torah authority of every generation from Moses until his time. By their name. That is the trail of tradition. That's how it came down to us. Every generation had many scholars, but there was always one who was responsible for the maintenance of Torah. So that we know exactly what happened at Mount Sinai, what Moshe came down off the mountain with. Because not everything was inscribed on parchment. The bigger portion of Torah was oral. So for example, Moshe comes down off the mountain and he says, you're not allowed to mix meat and milk. Okay, what does that mean? Don't cook meat in milk. It's mother's milk, okay? Can't cook it together. How about if it's not cooked? You're just having a glass of milk along with your hamburger. Also not allowed? Well, how do you know that? That's not written. So when Moshe came down off the mountain, did he tell the people, don't have milk with your hamburger? I mean, after a while when they got meat, when they complained that they didn't have meat and they got meat, then, of course, they already knew you can't have a glass of milk with meat. How did they know that? Because Moshe told them orally. So most of the Torah was not written down. There is more that was given orally than was given in writing. So that is the entire Torah. Now, who kept that information, kept that chain from breaking, so that we know that the information we have today is reliable and authoritative, and it comes directly from Moshe? So the Rambam, whose name was Moshe, spells out or gives you the names of every generation's Torah authority. So there was no break in that chain. Then the Rambam says, the Torah contains 613 mitzvahs. Let me give you the list. That takes about 4 days study. Just listing the 613 mitzvahs. No details, just a list of mitzvahs. 248 positive mitzvahs and 365 negative mitzvahs. There are 248 limbs in the body, organs. The 248 positive mitzvahs correspond to the 248 organs, because every organ says, please do the mitzvah that relates to me. Give me my mitzvah. So the hand has the mitzvah of tzedakah, the mind has the mitzvah of study, and the eyes have the mitzvah of perceiving or seeing godliness and not looking at ungodly things. Every organ has its mitzvah. Then there are the 365 prohibitions. 365 correspond to the days of the solar year. It's as if every day is saying, please don't mess me up with your sin. Not today. No. Every day says, no, not today. Not on my watch, please. Don't mess me up. So Rambam lists in an organized fashion all 613 mitzvahs. This eagle-eye view of the Torah earned him a title. People refer to the Rambam as Nesher HaGodol, the great eagle, because of this eagle-eye view, where he sees the entire Torah laid out in front of him and sees how all the parts connect and where they fit, is just a beautiful mosaic. Then he gets down to the first mitzvah. Drum roll. The first mitzvah in Torah. If you had to decide, what's the first mitzvah? There are a number of options. If you go according to the Torah, to the written Torah, what was the first mitzvah given? The first mitzvah was, be fruitful and multiply. So you could say that's the first mitzvah. Let's begin at the beginning. First, you have to be born. If you're not born, you can't do too many mitzvahs. So somebody better be fruitful. He doesn't start with that. Then there's another way of beginning, like the Shulchan Aruch begins. Let's start from the first mitzvah in the morning. Rambam doesn't do that either. Rambam is thinking, what orientation, what thinking must you have in place before you start to do all the other mitzvahs? First, you got to get your head on straight. Then we'll talk about how to conduct your life daily. And in that sense, Rambam is a Chabad chassid. Start with the mind. Get to know. Then you will love. Then you will do. So the Rambam begins all 613 mitzvahs with the mitzvah to get to know God. Get to know him. Because to know him is to love him. So his first volume, or his first section, is called Sefer Hamada. The first thing is what you need to know. So what's interesting is that some other writers, authorities, begin with the mitzvah to believe. The first mitzvah is to have faith, to have belief in God. I mean, how do you start without that? Rambam decides you can't use that as your first mitzvah. In fact, you can't even consider it a mitzvah. Because mitzvah means a commandment. How can there be a commandment to believe in a commander? This makes sense? If you don't already believe in a commander, who's giving the commandment? So when you say commandment, you're already assuming that there's a commander. So believing in a commander is not a mitzvah. It's not a commandment. It's the commander. That we believe as a default position. Knowing that there is a commander, we can start listening and hearing and observing his commandments. So we believe in God instinctively, not because there's a commandment. You can't have God commanding that we believe in him. Because if you don't believe in him, who's commanding? So what is the first mitzvah? The God you believe in, you have to get to know. Fantastic statement. It is not enough to believe in God. See, that already makes Judaism unique. There is no religion that advocates knowing God. They all advocate faith. Faith, belief, trust, not knowledge. In fact, most religions actually dumb down their followers. Probably because it's easier. You don't have to have answers. You don't have to satisfy the mind. You just believe. The result of that is, if all I'm expecting is for you to believe and you don't believe, what consequences can there be? See, if you're working with intelligence and a person says, I don't believe, then you reason with him and you convince him that not believing is wrong. It's not intelligent. It can't be true. So if someone says, I don't believe, well, then get to work. Educate him. But if there's no educating, there's no knowing, there's no understanding, there's only the obligation to believe, and a person says, but I don't believe. So what is the reaction and the response? you're going to go to hell. What else can they say? Or we'll burn you at the stake. You're a heretic. You're an infidel. So basing a religion entirely on faith usually brings violent repercussions. So the threat of punishment and the dumbing down, you don't have to understand, that's what has become of religions. The Rambam says we don't go that way, we don't do it that way, that's not right. The first thing is you got to get to know God. If you don't know him, well, get to know him. Well, I don't know how to get to know him. There are rabbis and teachers and scholars who will help you. You can get to know him, and we need to get to know him. It's the first mitzvah. So what do we do with the principle that says God is unknowable? Isn't that true? Can you really get to know God? Isn't it true that to know him is to be him? The only way you can get to know God is by being him. To some degree, that's true of everyone. How do I get to know you? Well, I have to become you. I can't really know you deeply or truthfully unless I become you. Only you know yourself thoroughly. Everybody else is just guessing. So being an outsider, I can form an opinion about you, but is that really you? I don't know. I'm not you. And people say this all the time. No, you don't understand my pain. You're not me. So really, any two beings can't understand each other unless they become each other. Philosophically, that's true. But does that mean that if you're married, you don't try to understand each other because you'll never understand without becoming the other? So that's it? So you don't need to try to understand at all? That's irresponsible. So even if it's true that we can't know God fully, totally, ultimately, it doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand as much as we can understand. But that's just practical. On a deeper level, God made himself knowable. You made yourself knowable. So on the one hand, you can say, a human being can't know God. That's impossible. On the other hand, if God makes himself known, that's certainly possible. God can do that. Ignore the phone, I can't reach it. So, on the one hand, human beings can't understand God. That's true. Unless God makes himself known. And he can certainly do that. Where does God make himself known? In the Torah. In different parts of the Torah, God makes different aspects of himself knowable. So The commandments, for example, if you study all the commandments, all 613 of them, you know what God wants. You know what is precious to him, you know what he enjoys, and you know what he hates. That's a pretty big chunk of information. If you get to know your husband's loves and hates, his tastes and his distastes, you pretty much know a significant section or a significant portion of who this person is. But then there are other parts of Torah that tell you other aspects of God. Why he created the world. What is his purpose? What is his goal? So if we study all parts of Torah, we get to know pretty much every aspect of God. At the same time, we also know that we are understanding God on our level. It's what a human being is capable of knowing. God reveals himself to the fullest degree of human intelligence. So anything that we don't know about God is beyond our intelligence anyway, and it would be irrelevant to us. So both things are true. We will never know God on a purely godly level, but we will know as much as human intelligence allows, which means we satisfy the mind completely. Anything that the mind can't know, it doesn't need to know and doesn't want to know. And that's where faith comes in. Emunah means I am comfortable with those parts of God that are not knowable. They're not knowable. It's not that God is keeping secrets. There are certain things about him that do not apply to intelligence. So your mind is missing nothing. Your mind doesn't want to know what is unknowable. Not interested. The mind wants to know everything it can know. And everything it can know, God made knowable about himself. Faith or emunah means where the mind cannot go, I have another relationship with God. The mind is not my only talent. I also have the talent called faith. So let's stick to the Rambam. First mitzvah, which is the foundation of all foundations and the pillar of all knowledge, is to know that there is an original existence from whose existence all other existence derives. The obvious question is, does that even need to be said? Is there anyone in the world who doesn't know that? What's the mitzvah? Like to say, the first mitzvah is be intelligent. Like, come on. We're intelligent. Teach us something. So to say the first thing you need to know, as if you don't already know it, the first thing you need to know is that there was an original being and everything comes from the original being. Oh, come on. That should go without saying. What that original being is, that's fascinating. That's what every scientist would love to know. How did it begin? What's the original being? But to tell me I should know that there's an original being, of course there is. That's like saying everything starts at the beginning. Oh, really? That's profound. Everything starts at the beginning. So here's what Rambam is actually doing. Knowing that you believe in God. Otherwise, why would you be studying his commandments? So we begin actually with a belief in God. Now, when we say God, we mean an unknowable. Because what we understand, that what we can relate to, is existence that was created. We cannot imagine an original being. It didn't need to be created. Then where did it come from? Well, it didn't come from anywhere. It always was. Well, how did it get there? No, it didn't get there. It always was. What do you mean it always was? We can't relate to that because that's not our experience. We did not always was. So when you say God always was, like, what? How can you always was? So Rambam is saying, because you believe in God, you probably assume that he is unknowable. That's why the first mitzvah, surprise, surprise, is that he is knowable. What is the first thing we know about him? Is that he exists in such a way. Listen to this. He exists in such a way that all else can gain and be a result of his existence. Try that again. First commandment is to know God. What do you know? That he exists, and from his existence, all other things get their existence. So what is he actually telling you? Not that God exists. It's how he exists. God exists in such a tangible fashion that from his existence, all other existence can evolve. So his existence is not detached from all else. The way that he exists allows for everything else to exist. Now that is surprising, because we would assume that if God exists, it's completely different from our existence and there can be no relationship between the two. In simplistic language, we are physical, material. God is spiritual. The physical cannot come from the spiritual. So what is Rambam saying? God is not spiritual. He's not spiritual. He exists in a way that eventually or inevitably makes other existence possible. His existence doesn't exclude your existence. Is this making sense, or? So let's try it again. You have to know that there is an original being from whose true existence all other existence derives. Because if he doesn't exist, nothing else can exist. But when he does exist, it gives existence to everything else. So what is he telling us? Not just that God exists, but that his existence is real enough in our perception, tangible enough to actually produce physical existence, which means he is not spiritual, because the spiritual does not lead to the physical.